Hello gamers, it's Brewski. I've got yet another checklist for you. Is it just me or is Circle popular? This is probably the third list I've done for them. I have a new player on the Circle Orboros Facebook group, Tyler. This is all for you, man. Tyler is a convert from Warhammer 40k, much like myself, so he's very much a beginner. I'm probably going to explain things in this video that I might not go into the same detail on, but I really hope it helps you guys. If it does, give this video a like and subscribe to see more like it. Anyway, enough of that. On to the meat and potatoes. So, Tyler has a number of models that would be good for the Bones of Orboros, and that's what he wanted to do. He had Bradicus Thorol, he had Baldur, he had Megalith, he had a Walled Guardian and a Walled Watcher, and he wanted to work with what he had and expand that. So I went ahead and made a 25-point list that is Brawl compatible for him. Tyler, I am going to tell you, man, I went back and forth a lot on what to throw in this list. I was thinking you should use Bradicus because he is such a cool model. I don't know about using him tactically, though. He's got a lot of abilities that you're going to want to use as you get more advanced and more knowledgeable in the game. I think Baldur is better to start with, so that's what I'm going to have you do in this list. He also works better with Megalith, so it just kind of works out that way. So, here's your list. Again, we are in Bones of Orboros. Your list is Baldur1, Baldur the Stone Cleaver. He's got in his battle group Megalith, a Walled Guardian, and a Walled Watcher. For solos, you have a Black Clad Stone Shaper, a Gallows Grove. And for units, you've got a Sentry Stone and Mannequins, Shifting Stones, and a Stone Ward with Walled Stalkers, aka Shrimp. Gotta love the shrimp. Anyway. That's right, kidders. So, for theme, we have Bones of Orboros. This has 2 points to it. One, before leeching Fury, when you're actually pulling Fury off your beasts during each control phase, you can remove up to 1 damage point from each circle beast. Number 2, friendly models and units can begin the game affected by Upkeep Spells. Now, this has to be declared along with the targets before you deploy. Warlocks don't have to pay Fury to upkeep the first turn. So if you have spells, an Upkeep spell means one that you can pay to keep in play. It doesn't just expire at the end of a round or after you cast it. You can start with those in play. Pretty handy. Okay, so your Warlock is Baldur1. His feat is called Broken Earth. This does 2 things. Number 1, while in his control range, friendly faction models get cover, which means they have +4 defense. This makes them harder to hit in combat. Not damage, but hit. Okay? The second thing, and this is more for your opponent, enemy models in the control range never have Pathfinder. This allows them to move through terrain more rapidly and treat open ground as rough terrain, so they move at slower speeds. In other words, this is a really good defensive spell, basically, and is a good way to defang an opponent on the turn when they want to do an alpha strike on you, a really big attack. If they are positioning and setting up for a charge, if they're setting up to get onto an objective, if they're setting up to assassinate you, you can pop feet and basically slow them down. It might not stop every single model they have, but it's going to give it a much higher probability that they're not going to make charges, they're going to go too slow, they're going to set themselves up to get hit by you, and if they're shooting, if they're attacking, you are much harder to hit at the same time. But that only lasts for 1 turn, so something to think with. Again, I don't think you want to use this first turn unless you have no way to screen yourself, unless they're somehow right up on you. This is probably turn 2, maybe even turn 3 when you use it. Alrighty, so down to his abilities. He's got Pathfinder, so he moves through terrain. Elemental Mastery. Construct beasts in his battle group, beginning in the control range, can charge and make power attacks without being forced. Normally in Hordes, you have to force your beasts to do something. They stack up Fury that way, which you can then leech to cast spells. You can also heal friendly constructs in the battle group. Forest Walk. While within a forest, he can forfeit movement and move to another forest within control range. This is great if you have forests. If you're playing on some other type of board or you don't have them, you do have some options, but you're going to be a lot more limited. So try to make sure you got some trees on the board. It's a good out. It's a good way to move him around. His weapon, Tritus, is a range 2 power strength 14. Not bad for a Warlock, really. Weight of Stone. When a model is damaged, it's -3 speed and defense for 1 round and does magical damage. Magical is good if you have, if your model can be ghostly or incorporeal. It doesn't get affected by normal weapons. The speed and defense is great. The speed means they're not going to move anywhere, they're not going anywhere very easily, and the defense makes them easier to hit. Baldur is not one that you want to get into combat too much. He's good, but he's not amazing, and he needs backup. In this list, unless he's right there with his beasts, you don't necessarily want to do that. He is an all-around spell guy, in my opinion. Okay, so you really want to take him for the spells. Maybe set him up for an assassination. There are certain models you can take that make this really easy. They're not all in this list, and I don't think you want to try that for turn 1. You want to use this list and win any way you can. If assassination really calls to you, go for it. If scenario is easier to do, do it. You do have the perk that these guys are a lot tougher, but don't rely on your warlock is what I'm saying here. Don't have him do all the heavy lifting. Okay. For spells, he's got Earth Spikes. So this is an offensive spell, range 10. It's a 3-inch area of effect. You'll hear people say AoE a lot. That just means area effect. It's a template size, usually between 3, 4, and 5 inches. Power 13. Ignores cover and concealment on a critical hit. Models become knocked down. You want to knock down models because they're easier to hit and easier to shoot when they are. It's just a point. Rapid growth. I talked about ways to put trees there. This is one of them. Place a 4-inch AoE within control range. This is a forest that stays in play as long as it's upkept. This is an upkeep spell, so you can start with it. If you want to have a place to move him to that'll be in cover, you can start with that. Solid ground. While in control range, friendly models can't become knocked down and get blast resistance, +4 armor against blast damage. Armor is what someone is trying to beat when they're trying to damage you. They've hit you, now they're trying to damage you. That's what they have to beat. It's kind of like toughness in 40k. Against blast, that's pretty handy, especially if you're playing an army that has a lot of guns, like Signar, a Shooty Khador list. These guys, you're going to want things like that. And Stone Skin. Friendly model or unit gets +2 strength and armor, but -1 speed and defense. So the strength is obviously how strong they are. Armor, again, how tough they are against getting wounded. That's going to increase, but they slow down and they're easier to hit. It's a bit of a trade-off. Very true to the fluff, if you think about it. Not a bad spell if you're trying to make something a little more resilient. Again, don't rely on him to do the heavy lifting. He's there to help, and he's there to coordinate, he's there to buff, attack, whatever, but I wouldn't rely on him to kill too many things by himself. His buddy Megalith is in the list. Are the re-drilling them out? Megalith is a construct. He has Pathfinder, so he moves through terrain. He's bonded to Baldur. There are character jacks or beasts in this game. He is the one for Baldur. That's why I really took him. If he's in control range at the start of activation, Baldur can remove D3 damage. There is another version of Baldur that will take damage to himself for using abilities. That's what I think this was really made for. But as an insurance policy to keep your warlock alive, I think it's pretty good. Alright, Bountiful Restoration. During the control phase, remove D3 damage points from Meg. If a friendly Walled Warden is within 1 inch during control phase, the Warden can remove D3 damage points from Mend instead of 1. You're not taking one in this list, so that doesn't really do anything. As you get more models and as you expand, that's probably a really good idea because this is a great way to keep them alive. But for right now, with what you got, don't worry about it. You can still heal Meg with this, which is good. He's steady, so he can't be knocked down. He has a magic ability. This is a bit weird. Most beasts in Hordes, they have what's called Animi. Singular is Animus. It's just a spell that they kind of have built in that the caster can use or they can use, okay? He has a normal magic spell. A little bit different. His spell is Geomancy. Once per activation in controller's control range, this model can cast one of Baldur's spells, or the Warlock spells, whichever one you use, at cost 3 or less. Can't cast Upkeep or Self or Control range. In this case, you have Earth Spikes and Stone Skin. So, pretty handy. You can basically, in his turn, if you wanted to, you could double the offensive spell with Earth Spikes. You could double up making something tough or powerful with Stone Skin. His weapons, he's got 2 Rune Fists. Power Strength 17, Magical Open Fist, and Weight of Stone. When a model is damaged, takes -3 speed and defense for 1 round. And his Animus is Undergrowth. While within 5 inches of a caster, enemy models treat open ground as rough terrain and take -2 defense. Similar to Baldur's Feet, but this also reduces defense a bit further. Alright. Getting into the rest of your group, you have a Walled Guardian. This guy is a beatstick. He is nothing particularly awesome at range, but he is great for defense and he's great for melee combat. He's your most powerful hitter, by the way. He's Power Strength 18. with Battering Ram. This is 2 weapons here. So he's got Pathfinder, he's a construct. He has Shield Guard. Once per round, a friendly model is directly hit by a non-spray ranged attack during the opponent's turn within 3 inches of this model. The Guardian can take the hit instead. If you have a solo you're trying to keep alive, or Baldur for that matter, this is a good ability to use. Steady, he can't be knocked down. His weapons, 2 Battering Rams. Power Strength 18, Magical, and Ram. When an enemy model is hit by the weapon, it's knocked down and pushed 1 inch away. If the model is pushed, you can advance the 1 inch. So this thing basically punches you in the face, the thing falls back, and it follows to meet him is how that works. His Animus is Irresistible Force. Caster gets Bulldoze. When a model with Bulldoze is base-to-base with an enemy, it can push up to 2 inches away. Once per turn, no effect when making a trample attack. You're trying to walk over something that way. Again, this guy is not only a heavy beat stick, he's good for moving models. Sometimes you want to move a model off of an objective or out of range of something. This is one way to do it, and it's probably your faster one. Okay. Then getting into your light beast, this is the Walled Watcher. He's got Pathfinder, he's a construct. He has advanced deployment. If you remember Infiltrators in 40k, this is kind of like that, not exactly. Can be deployed forward 6 inches beyond the normal deployment zone. So you have your board edge, your deployment zone. This guy can go a little bit further than that. Alright, Stone Form. This model can be forced to use Stone Form anytime during activation. For 1 round or till it advances, this model gets +4 armor. Defense is reduced to 5, and it's auto hit in melee. This would help in terms of keeping it alive from shooting, but once you get into melee, you don't want to use it. The armor, again, is against getting wounded, but your defense being reduced and getting auto hit in melee just means everything's going to smack him, which is not good. So this is something you use early game. It'll just keep him alive from shooting. Weapons, he's got Elemental Strike. This is a ranged one, and one of your few ranged attacks. 10 inches, Power 12 gun, Magical, and Fertilizer. It sounds kind of gross, but this guy literally turns things to shit. When a living or undead model is boxed, meaning all their damage boxes are filled up, center a 3-inch AoE on the model and remove it from play. You get a forest in play for 1 round. Rune Fist ×2, that's his close combat. Power and Strength 13, not bad for a light. Open Fist, Magical, and Fertilizer again. So this thing is the Johnny Appleseed of beasts. His Animus is Earth's Blessing. The caster can't be pushed, knocked down, made stationary, or moved by a slam. This is really good if something absolutely must stay on an objective, is likely to get hit by a lot of things, or is slammed against. It's just a way to be implaceable. Between Stoneform and the Animus, yeah, you can make this thing take a lot of range punishment, so you probably want to have this guy up further forward, take advantage of the advanced deployment, make him a target. Better he gets killed than Megalith and the Guardian, because they're going to hit harder and they're going to last longer. Okay. Getting into your other stuff. You've got a Black Clad Stone Shaper. Solos in this game play an interesting role because there's certain objectives only they can take. He's one of yours. So he has Pathfinder, he can move through terrain. Stone Sentinel, while base-to-base with a friendly construct, he gets +2 defense and armor and can't be knocked down. And he has magic ability, so he can cast spells. His spells, he does a little bit of everything. I use the word toolbox with him, which means he can do everything. He can do a variety of tricks. He's probably the MVP of your army in terms of getting it to do other things. Earth's Power. Target-friendly construct in command range gets +2 strength for a turn. This is a way to make your hits harder. You cast this on the Walled Guardian, he's going to be hitting at Power Strength 20, which is nothing to sneeze at. Megalith would be 19. Pretty darn good. Quiet the Stones. Target-friendly construct. Place 1 Fury on it or remove 1 Fury from it. So this is Fury management. You'll hear that a lot. You don't want your beasts to get too much Fury because over their threshold they will Frenzy, which means they just go wild and attack the closest thing to them, even if it's one of your models. This is a way, if you're running low, though, to put Fury on a beast. In other words, if you want to give him an additional attack or boost a damage roll, boost an attack roll, that's a way to do it. He's got Repair. Target-friendly faction construct. If it's in range, base-to-base, remove D6 damage. This is your best repair terminal. So if you get this guy to your damaged beast, he will bring them back from the brink. And Stone Spray. It's an offensive 8-inch spray attack at power 12 if critical hit gets knocked down. A lot of your spells have that, critical knockdown. I wouldn't rely on it, but it can be handy and it can turn the game for you if used correctly and if you're in a good spot to do it. Again, he's versatile. He's probably the most versatile model you have. Use him as you need him. If you need to be stronger, then he's using Earth's power. If you need to handle Fury, quiet the stones. If you're taking a ton of damage, repair. And if you just need a bunch of offensive ranged attacks, he's got a spray. We're getting into some weird stuff here. You've got a Gallows Grove. This is another solo. It has advanced deployment. Has the rule Central Locus. Can channel spells through the model. In War Machine, we have Arc Nodes. These things are warjacks that you can have a caster sling a spell through to make the range go further or to make it hit further beyond where the caster can reach. That's how this works for Hordes, and it's one of the few models that can do that. Circular vision, there's no way to get a back strike. The models have arcs. If you're coming at it from the front, that sometimes means something. If you're hitting it in the back, that definitely means something. In this case, he doesn't get any back strikes. Entropic Force, here's where the fun begins. Within 5 inches of this model, enemies lose tough and can't have damage removed. They can't be healed. This is one of those things you want to put far enough up that it's a pain in the ass. Okay, and there's other reasons for that in the rest of his rules, but making things lose tough and not be healable, that makes some people think twice about moving them there, especially if you're playing armies where a lot of the models are tough, like Trollbloods. It's one way to really remove an advantage they have naturally built in. Just a tree? I'm Ron Burgundy? While concealed, it gets stealth. So if you stick this in another forest or make one on it, you can make attacks over 5 inches away, automatically miss. It's a good way to keep this model alive. Strange Growth, once per turn, anytime during activation, can be placed 5 inches away from its current location. This has the rule immobile, which means it doesn't move normally. It just magically goes from point A to point B. Circle does that a lot with trees. You're just going to need to get used to that. Anyway, this guy, again, he can sit on objectives, and he's a good choice to do that because he's got that entropic force, so he'll actually be making things unhealable. He can't be backstruck, which is good, and he's great, like I said, for channeling spells through. You're going to want to use offensive spells from Baldur on this. Earth Spikes, I think it was. Great thing to get your offensive shooting started with this. It just gives you more range, and you can start doing damage earlier than you would just relying on Baldur's natural range. Okay, Sentry Stone and Mannequins. This is a small unit, but it's a very resilient unit, and it can do a number of things. So they're constructs. They have advanced deployment. So again, you have something else that's deploying further forward. The Mannequins have Pathfinder, and they're Fury linked. At any time during activation, you can spend a Fury on the commander to boost one attack or damage roll for each Fury spent. Boosting just means you roll an extra damage, extra dice, sorry. And they've got ranged and close combat attacks. They're not horrifically powerful, but they're good. The range is called Splinter Burst. It's a spray at 8 inches, power 10 and magical, and his close combat is Claws, power strength 11. Not very powerful, but for troops, not bad. The Officer is the Sentry Stone. I know, they're taking orders from a rock. Who the funk? It's immobile. It can't move, knock down, or be moved. It's auto-hit and melee. Strange Growth means it moves. Prowl. While concealed, this gets stealth. Again, it's the auto-miss over a certain range. Forest Growth. Once per turn, can spend a Fury to use Forest Growth. Center a 3-inch area of effect on the model, and it's a forest that remains in play for 1 round. That is how you give it concealment. In other words, if you automatically need to hide this thing, that's one way to do it. Wellspring. If there are less than 3 Fury points on Sentry Stone during the maintenance phase, put D3 Fury points on it. Can have up to 3 Fury at any time. If there are fewer than 3 Mannequins in the unit, put 1 Grunt into play in formation. This is important. If the Sentry Stone is destroyed or removed from play, the Mannequins disappear. The stone makes the Mannequins, okay? So, to some degree, you want to keep that hidden. You want to keep it protected. You probably want to use Forest Growth every single turn if you can, just to keep it hidden. That's just a way to keep it alive. Again, it's a tough self-regenerating unit that can shoot or fight, so it's handy in both. Can grow a forest, move, and boost attack and damage on the mannequins. It's still going to draw a lot of attention, but it has some survivability, and it'll take heat off the walls in Baldur early on. Your advanced deployments in this are going to be key because they're going to be the first things hit, but they're great for screening. They're great for taking the heat off other models. All right, shifting stones. I did not take their command attachment in this. I normally would recommend that. In this case, I don't really care. They have advanced deployment, circular vision, they're never hit in the back. Immobile, they're not normally moved, can't be knocked down, blah, blah, blah. Serenity, can remove 1 Fury point from a War Beast within 1 inch, so more Fury management here. Shifting powers, they have 3 abilities, and you pick one at the start of the turn that you want them to do. Healing field, models in the unit and within 2 inches of one of the stones can remove D3 damage points separately for each model, okay? So you use this, then each stone in the unit can remove damage from themselves, and each model within 2 inches of a stone. So you really have, you know, a 2 inch, a 2 inch, and a 2 inch. That's kind of how that works. It's a huge field to heal. One of their great perks, honestly. The other ability is shifting. Place each model anywhere within 8 inches in formation. They don't move, but they move. It's the same kind of deal. And teleportation. If all 3 stones are in formation, put 1 friendly model within the triangle within 8 inches of its current location. The model forfeits movement after this, okay? So if you have them in triangle formation, you move a model into that can then move 8 inches, can be teleported somewhere. This is a way to trampoline a model into combat or closer range, whatever, but it can't move after. Think of this as, if you ever saw Kingsglaive, it's like they teleport, they throw a knife, they teleport, and then they're throwing up afterwards. They just don't feel like moving. They're just, that's what's happening here. You want to use that to get your walls up because they're not the fastest beasts in the game. That's one way to get them into combat a lot faster. Shifting means you can move them where you want to. Healing field is always good. They're a great support unit. I don't think I've recommended a circle list that didn't take them. So big deal there. And last but not least, we got the Stone Ward and the Walled Stalkers. Yes, I'm going to call them shrimp. Everyone does. They look like shrimp. What can I say? All right. So the Ward has Pathfinder. He's a black Clad. He has magic ability, and he has self-sacrifice. If he's disabled by an attack, you can choose a non-disabled model in the unit within 3 inches of that model to be destroyed, and he removes 1 damage. If he's going to die, you can take out a shrimp, and he'll just take 1 damage instead. Keeps him alive. The Walled Stalkers are constructs, and they have Gunfighter. This means they can make ranged attacks even in melee. That's how they fight. Okay? There's other rules to that. I'm not getting into the super complication here. Just know that they use their ranged attack for everything. Weapons-wise, the Stone Ward has a Vulg. It's a melee weapon, power strength 10 and magical. Nothing to sneeze at. You don't really want to see him in close combat if you can help it. The Grunts have Arcane Strike. That's a 10-inch range, power 12, and magical. The Stone Ward makes the unit work. You don't want to take these guys without him. Here's why. His spells are Concentrated Fire and Zephyr. Concentrated Fire is really the biggie. This activation models get a +1 cumulative bonus to ranged damage rolls for each other model that has hit an enemy model with ranged attack. You have to roll 1 at a time, but stack the bonus. So, you shoot with the shrimp, okay? The first one has normal shooting. He hits. The one after that gets +1 to his damage when he hits. The next one gets +2. The next one gets +3, up to the max of the unit. This is a good way to really start doing heavy damage or ensuring damage to some unit you're shooting, whether that's a jack or troops. It can be good either way. Zephyr is just for movement. Models in the unit can advance up to 3 inches. So this is a good way to have them move, shoot, and then they can pop back and cover, or they can move further up if they take out a unit. It works both ways. It's handy either way. You can't use both in one shot from what I understand, so really you're either using Concentrated Fire or you're using Zephyr to sort of hit and fade with them. I don't really want to see them in Assault. I know they can gunfight. I don't want to see them in that because I think you're gonna get overpowered. They're not very good at it, and it's just a way to waste the unit. I think you want to keep them at range as much as possible. Probably using Zephyr more often than Concentrated Fire unless they have one dedicated target and it has to fucking die that turn. That's when you want to use that. overall strategy for the list. Take your units, and I would sort of run them as screening and deterrence for your opponents. Have them shoot, have them do damage at range. Couple that with earth spikes. Couple that with the spray from the Black Clad. The Walled Watcher can use his spell as well. Use all that stuff to do damage first. I'm thinking of the units as a wall, and they don't move. They don't really go anywhere. They just kind of sit there. And your walled units, your beasts, move up to get into combat and do damage that way. I think you're going to have a harder time with Scenario than Assassination doing this, because you're not going to necessarily take different areas. But if their caster is anywhere near you, or if you can get things near them, take certain things out near them, then you stand a good shot at an Assassination run as well. Potentially using abilities like Zephyr for the shrimp, you can get them close enough to actually shoot that guy. Again, I don't see Baldur doing a one-on-one assassination, but his spells can help. Probably your best bet is to run all the beasts in a wave or in a group. I would think that Meg, the Guardian, and the Watcher all sort of converging in one spot. That's going to be a little irresistible. It can be a drawback. If they have to be in multiple zones, or if your opponent spreads out their jacks or beasts, it's not necessarily the smart play. That's going to come down to the mission and who you're playing against. With this list, I think you're going to run into trouble from infantry type armies, like Defenders of Ios for the Retribution of Syra. There's going to be a lot of troops. There's not going to be so many jacks. Signar uses Gravediggers. Winterguard Command for Khador. Legion with a bunch of small little grunt units. Those kind of things. I think those armies are going to be the tough nut to crack, just because your Walds are good, but they're not necessarily going to do as much damage having to fight entire units themselves, and you don't have big units to counter. That's what I think you're going to run into trouble with. It's a mixed bag of those being run, though. They're not always the most popular lists you're going to be fighting. So I would start there. Tweaks on the list, I would eventually, like I said, put in a Walled Warden so you can take advantage of Meg's other ability. Probably that would free up a point or two, and then you can maybe get something else. I would switch him for the Guardian, if anything. That'll probably give you a point or two. I don't remember offhand the total cost. But that can get you another solo, or get the command attachment for the Sentry Stones, or get another unit eventually. You're going to be tweaking. You're going to be moving stuff around. But for 25 points, I think this is going to be an okay list for you to start out with. So I really hope you like it, and I hope this has helped. Again, I'm up for requests. If you guys want help with a list or want me to make you one, please send me an email in the description. Leave a comment. I'm happy to help out on this. Share it with your friends if they're getting into the game. I will have some announcements a little bit later. There's been some stuff in the War Machine community. One of the guys that I've been watching for a long time is essentially going on an indefinite hiatus. And I definitely had some thoughts on that related to this kind of thing. So I'll be going into that in another video, but I will see you guys next time. Stay savage.